Hello and welcome. Long time no video, I know, but I was pretty busy and then I was sick and then I was busy again and I was sick again. So doesn't matter, don't want to bother you. I had a couple of questions regarding this shot here about how it was made. I got a question whether this is an HDR shot. It is not. It is just made out of a single exposure. And you see that if you look closely, there's a lot of noise going on in the shadows. So, yeah, I think for that output size, it's okay-ish. So, if you want to tone map your photos in Lightroom and not in Photoshop or in any other software, then you can do that. The problem is if you don't have Lightroom CC or Lightroom 6, then you cannot merge your bracketed shots. But, well, that is what I'd like to show you. There's a real cool way to do that. I'll show you with Photoshop and then I'll show you with free software. And if you have no idea what I'm talking about, don't worry. I think it will get pretty clear in the video. I do have a special software called HDR Projects Platinum, or Platin in German. I don't use it usually. Okay, I just got it for like, I don't know, $5 or something. Okay, I show you it. So what is HDR? HDR does mean high dynamic range, meaning if you keep it very simple, you have a shot like this one and you see well, not too much information in the back, in the blacks and the shadows, and oh yeah, blown out highlights. And so I want to have more information. We can play around and we can do things with the raw file, especially with the raw file. But, well, if we would underexpose that shot a bit, like so, we have more information in the highlights. That's a cool thing. We lose information in the blacks, but we have more information in the highlights. And then we could overexpose the shot and we have more information in the blacks and shadows, but, well, less information in the highlights. What about combining these three shots? That would be amazing. So that we have the information in the shadows, in the midtone area, and in the highlights in just one single file, and then can choose what we want to show, and that is tone mapping. And that, I mean, even raw processing, raw developing is tone mapping. So that is just working with a lot more information. So you capture information, you capture more information by underexposing, by correctly exposing, by overexposing. Usually you do something like bracketed exposure of 3 or 5 or 7 files, photos. I don't want to discuss about the amount of files. I read from people that I respect a lot and that really think that they know what they're doing. They say most of the time 3 shots will be enough. And that is my personal experience as well. But if you want to do 9, do 9. I don't care. So these are the 3 shots. So correctly exposed, underexposed, overexposed. And we have to combine them. In Lightroom CC or Lightroom 6, you can do that already. Like in Lightroom, you don't have to bother. You can do that. If you don't have Lightroom 6 or Lightroom CC, like I do, I don't have it yet, because I still can't decide whether to get the single version, like just buy it or update it, upgrade it, or just get the bundled version, the CC version, bundled with Photoshop. I don't know yet. So, and since I'm not a fan of decisions, at least not if it comes to these things, I still work with Lightroom 5. Okay, but I want to do that, even if you can't do that. How to do that? First step is, of course, to combine these 3 shots. So what to do? Well, first of all, we're gonna export them, okay? So that we have them outside of Lightroom. Click on export. What I do, the best way and best in terms of to maintain all of the information that is in those raw files, is to save them as a TIFF file. Because TIFF is, at least if you export it from Lightroom, lossless picture format. So see, compression zip is a lossless compression or none. Files will be bigger. The important thing here to maintain all of the information that's in there is to stay to go at 16 bits. Don't go to 8 bits, you'll lose information. Can go to 16 bits. And the color space, if you have no idea what you're doing, stay at sRGB. You can choose between sRGB, Adobe RGB, and ProPhoto RGB, or any other that you can import into Lightroom. If you have no idea what you're doing, you can't go wrong with sRGB. You can go horribly wrong with Adobe RGB if you have no idea what you're doing. So stay at sRGB. Don't resize the photos. So if you were shooting with in JPEG, then just take the JPEGs. Don't do any conversion or anything. Just keep the. I'm sorry, it's still early. No, it's not. Use the JPEGs. You can, if the piece of software that we're now working with supports your RAW files, then you don't have to do a conversion, okay? But this is just for safety. So export them and you're fine. So we have 3 single files now. Takes a bit because Lightroom is doing a bit of processing, of course, conversion. I could sing in the meantime. No, okay, we're done. So here are these 3 files. What do we do with them? If you have any kind of specialized HDR software like this one, use that. But then you don't need that video, okay? So you can fuse them, make an exposure fusion of those 3 files in Photoshop. If you do have Photoshop, it's pretty simple. I did that already for the other file. You don't look at that. It looks terrible. Just close that. We don't want to see that. Close the animation. I made a couple of GIFs lately. So we can do that. It's just dragging them in Photoshop. Boom, ba-dum, ba-dum. Also takes time because huge files. Ba-dee-ba-doop. So Photoshop is opening those files. You have them all in Photoshop. That's one way. There are other ways to open photos. You can do the bridge and stuff like that. I just do it this way. Go to File, Automated Things. I don't know what it's called in English. And just click on Merge to HDR Pro. And then a new window opens. I see nothing in there. You can open them here. Just click on use those that are already opened. And that's basically it. Lightroom, Photoshop merges those 3 files into one file. So the information that is stored in 3 different files will be merged into one. And that's the great thing. So now that we have all of the information in one file, we can work with it. And that even works with older versions of Lightroom. I think, I'm not 100% sure, but I think it works since Lightroom 4. You can just import those files and work with them. It just takes a bit. Gotta wait. Pete waits. Not Tom waits. I'm gonna cut that. Okay. So that's it. That's basically it. You see +2 f-stops, 0, -2 f-stops. That's what it is. The important thing here is, and that is the only really important thing, is to keep the mode at 32-bit. Not 16-bit, not 8-bit. Go to 32-bit. That is important because only a 32-bit file can hold all of the information brackets, exposure brackets. A 32-bit file can virtually hold an infinite amount of brightness information. So mode 32-bit. Click on OK, and that's it. So Photoshop does some bit of processing, and you see, okay, we have that shot. Looks terrible, doesn't matter, all the information is in there. Why does it look terrible? It looks terrible because this is a 32-bit file. And our displays cannot display, our displays cannot display a 32-bit file. But the information is in there, so we can save that file, save as, and we choose TIFF again. See, it's 32-bit, that's important. Let's call it Photoshop file PSD HDR. That works, okay? Save it. 32-bit, you can compress, you can use any of these compressions, doesn't matter. Blah blah blah. Click on OK. You're done. You have created a 32-bit file. And you can open that in Lightroom. So it looks much better than the Photoshop version. It looks completely blown out. And this is Lightroom. Okay, really cool. But now we can tone map it. The whites down, and you see, oh, a lot of information. Bring the shadows up. See what those enormous amount of information that's still there. That's really cool. You can even bring the blacks up, and you will see or will realize that the sliders behave slightly differently than you're used to. They most definitely have more impact. So that is one way. If you do it with Photoshop, if you do not have Photoshop, there is, and I hope I'll find it, there is a great little piece of software that is called, there's free software. I hope I find it. Yes, it's called Luminance HDR. It's free. You can download it for free. I think it's some sort of donationware or something. Yeah, open source software development requires hundreds of hours of work, blah, blah. I don't use it anymore. I used it about 2 times or something before I got this platinum thingy. And so I didn't pay for it. I mean, it's legal, you can use it, nobody forces you to pay for it, but if you use it frequently, it would be amazing if you support them. Okay, so this is basically the same thing. Okay, new HDR image, we'll add, and we'll just choose these 3 files, open them. Well, this piece of software is not only for fusing different exposure brackets, but it's also for tone mapping. I have not tried tone mapping in this one. So far, I only used it for fusing different exposures into one file. So don't ask me things about that piece of software. I just use it for fusing because I want to do my tone mapping in Lightroom. So that's it, and that's what we're using it for in this video. And it seems, from what I read, to be a very, very powerful tool, and you can do a lot with it. I just don't know what and how, so don't ask me, okay? There are a lot of online tutorials out there if you really want to dive into that piece of software. And I saw an enormous amount of amazing photos tone map with that thing, Luminance HDR. I guess it's even an outdated version 2.40 because I didn't use it for a very long time, because usually I don't do HDRs. So same here, auto line images, we don't have to click that because it was shot from a tripod. Auto anti-ghosting. I could click that, but it's not really. It's not really. It's more important if people were walking through the frame or leaves are really moving or something like that. We just don't click that. You can try that. Advanced editing tools, things like that, and just keep everything at default. That's what I read. It's not just like with me. If you just want to do exposure fusion, just keep everything at default. Click on finish, and it's processing the file, and you will see it looks terrible. It looks terrible, but that is because, well, it's not tone map yet. You see it's much darker. Different pieces of software will give you different results. And what we do now is just save it. Save as, and we want to save it as TIFF. Let's call it Luminance HDR TIFF. Save it. 32-bit, important. Click on OK. This takes a bit, of course. And I could sing. No, I don't. Don't want to. This was not. I was not threatening you. Okay, it's just making fun. And we can go back to Lightroom and import that shot, and we can work with that. As I said, it looks a bit different, but we can do the same thing. Raise the shadows, raise the exposure a bit, bring down the whites a bit, smooth things out, bring the blacks up, or maybe bring down the shadows a bit more. Looks quite neat. You can add like the basic profile corrections, chromatic aberrations. Well, profile corrections obviously does not work with Luminance HDR merged file. Obviously the camera information gets lost, but okay. Well, looks neat. I like it. So that's it. Hope you enjoyed that. Bye till next time.